Now, you could just say about all of this is just kind of the nature of the system. Or you could say that it's evidence of a kind of rise of greed in the United States or newfound self-interested behavior. I don't think this critique is totally off base. There certainly has been an important shift in kind of social norms in terms of the amount of money people are willing to make, in terms of short-term, long-term interests, and the like. But the curious thing about this is that you don't actually see this kind of behavior everywhere in the US economy. In fact, there's actually a really dramatic difference between what you see happening in the kind of, we could call it the service economy, but let's say the economy where these principal-agent conflicts are very important, and what's happening in what you could call the real economy. You shouldn't really call it that, but the economy of, let's say, goods, of manufacturing and the like. In the part of the economy where principal-agent problems are pervasive, principals, and might be as consumers, it may be as borrowers, it may be as shareholders, it may be as lenders. If you're lending money to these banks, you oftentimes were sort of screwed over as well. You oftentimes feel exploited, I think. You feel like other people are profiting at your expense, and you're right to feel like that. You feel like you're spending more and getting less. And not coincidentally, in that part of the economy, the agents are getting enormously wealthy. If you look at the rise of inequality in the United States, it's largely concentrated in those sectors. On the other hand, if you look at the part of the economy that's sort of a more traditional consumer economy, the opposite is true. If you actually look at the market for, let's say, like computer technology or televisions or automobiles or appliances, in all of these cases, I would make the case that actually in those cases we're spending less and we're actually getting more. That actually in most of those cases, the products that are being made today are actually better than they used to be. They're more reliable. They deliver better value for money. In fact, when it comes to most manufactured goods, these are the good old days. Products are more durable than they used to be. In a survey a few years ago, Consumer Reports found that in most product categories, repair rates were just like between 10 and 20%, which is very low historically. The average life of a car is up about 50% since 1970. They last about 50% longer. Think about how much cheaper something like a DVD player is than it was, I don't know if people even have DVD players anymore. Much cheaper than it was even 5 or 6 years ago. I was talking to the managing editor of Consumer Reports, and he said, you don't find the kinds of things that you used to find decades ago, like toasters that could electrocute you or TVs that blew up, basically. If you buy a TV, you're going to get a good picture, he said, and if you buy a stereo, you're going to get great sound. He actually said that the guy who used to test stereos for them said to him once, he said, you can't buy a bad stereo anymore, he said. They just don't make the parts anymore, basically. Now, this is largely the result, I think, of a combination of consumers being ever more demanding and the fact that there's a lot more information out there for consumers to draw on. But it's also a function of the fact that in this part of the economy, it's relatively easy for consumers to recognize when something isn't going the way it's supposed to. So if a television set doesn't work well, you know it. You don't know how to build, well, some of you may, but you don't know how to build television sets, but you know whether or not they're working reasonably well. And if you don't have a really good sense of it, or if you're trying to decide in advance what to buy, you have places like Consumer Reports, or nowadays you have the net. So there's an explosion in information that has become available to consumers and that you can draw on even before you walk into a store. Now, there are obviously still like those electronic stores on whatever 42nd Street, basically trying to sell crappy goods to you and the like. But the truth is that consumers are on the whole much better informed than ever before. They have many more choices than ever before. Competition is obviously massively increased in these fields. And the result is really what I kind of think of as a sort of inexorable rise of quality. And the result is that if you're a middleman in this business, if you're an agent in those businesses, you actually have a much harder time making money than you used to. It's a kind of nonstop treadmill. You have to keep performing. Because if you mess up, people are very happy and very willing to go somewhere else, right? That's why companies like Circuit City went out of business. Because if you didn't provide value, customers are no longer going to come to you. And so it's much harder for people in these businesses to get enormously wealthy. You can do it. Steve Jobs obviously did it. Jeff Bezos has done it. But the only way to do it is to actually really give people what they're looking for.